This is the Cafe con Podcast.
Hey, everybody. First and foremost, I think we say this every intro, but thank you guys for listening. I mean, it's been awesome. You know, it's been a little bit since we recorded, so it was nice to get back on the wagon. And thank you guys just for drinking your coffee and letting us into your hearts and souls. We appreciate it. We love you guys.
For real.
I don't know what we're gonna call you yet. We should come up with a name for the Cafe con podcasters. I don't know.
Our little cafecitos.
I don't know what. Yeah, coffee beans. Your little coffee beans. Our little frijoles. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm Isaac,
And I'm George.
and
This is the Cafe con Podcast.
yeah. So this episode, we got to talk with our boy Reed Roffis. Reed Roffis, the man, great dude. Honestly, this was one of the more eclectic conversations. And like you were just saying, he's incredibly articulate about a lot of different topics. We will go from watches to his 1,000-mile bike ride that started in Colorado, went to Utah, back to Colorado. So please listen because it is an unbelievable feat of human will and physical just exertion. I don't even know how else to put it, right? Like, what did you think of all the stuff that he was talking about?
I mean, like I said right before this, I was like, he's very articulate. He's like a bro, but he's just articulate about what he wants to express. I don't know, dude. He just seems like a different breed too, compared to me at least. You know, like he's from Colorado. Like the way he spoke about that trek, I wouldn't say he downplayed it, but it's something he's familiar with, right? Where if it was me, I would be like, this is madness. And it's just cool to see someone that's honest, you know, about their journey in life, and that, you know, nothing's forever, and it's okay if you stop doing something. At least you started, you know.
At least you tried.
At least you tried. I think that was a great part of it. Is like, if you just try, man, then you'll know if it's like really for you or not. You
Just
know,
gotta try.
That's something I'm trying to apply to my life, at least like socially and like psychologically. Because I would say like 90% of the time, it's really the things we don't do is because we're in our own way, but we don't even realize it. We make excuses of like outside factors, but really all the answers are within. So that's what I took from it.
He was incredibly open. Mm-hmm. It was exactly what you just said. You guys are going to listen. You guys are going to take a lot from this because it's definitely somebody. I've seen him grow since I've known him, but it's definitely somebody who, just listening to the little nuggets of just, even without him knowing, talking about the trip, you could take a lot from that just for every single day life. Mm-hmm. Just doing it, you know?
And it was such a simple conversation that you wouldn't think you could take a lot from it, but when you reflect, you can.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I hope you guys grab your cafecitos, let us in, listen, take what you will, send us. If y'all have anything you want us to talk about, I mean, we're going to probably do another little cafecito episode soon, but we love you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And don't forget.
And don't ever forget.
This is the Cafe con Podcast.
It was a battle of if somebody wanted to play or not. It just didn't seem like they wanted to play.
I didn't get to watch the game, but people were saying like it felt like they quit, right? Like it was embarrassing.
I don't even think
it was
they
more
started
embarrassing
playing
for them than it was for us.
I don't even think they started playing. You can't
Sorry.
quit if you don't start playing.
Bro, our big football news in Colorado is CU, not the Broncos. So Coach Prime, baby.
And they put up a fight yesterday. I don't know if you watched the game.
They did, bro.
I've been
I
watching
did.
all
I
their
was
games.
watching at work. Dude, like all these celebs are coming through like the rocks in the stadium. Like fucking
Warren
DaBaby was there for some reason. DaBaby was in the student section. It was pretty funny.
Yo,
It's wild what he's doing to college football.
Deion Sanders' publicist is like publicist of the year or agent.
Oh yeah.
And what happened against Colorado State? First off, that other coach gave him the most
The
perfect
business, bro.
business in the world. You know, my mom
Yeah.
raised me to take off my glasses when I talk to people. Easy marketing. Now I'm just gonna sell millions of sunglasses. Easy.
Easy,
I was
bro.
like, oh my god, you laid it
Too
up
easy.
Oh
Too
my
easy.
god. Well,
All right, boys. Well,
this is it.
cheers.
Cheers. Let's get this thing underway. I've been waiting.
Cheers, gentlemen. Are we recording?
Salud.
Yeah.
Hell
Cafe
yeah.
con podcast after a little
Thank-
time off, dude.
Yeah,
Your
from
your
Yes, sir,
first
bro.
session after a little time off, dog.
It's good
Oh
to
yeah,
be
how
back.
long has it been?
It's been a few weeks, I would say. Maybe even
Yeah,
a few weeks, a month.
Cool, man.
You know, I think that's one of the challenges with this whole thing. I'm gonna keep the game on, by the way, on the side over here.
Do
Just
your
so I
thing.
can
Do your thing. Keep us.
Hell yeah,
keep
dog.
going. I think that's one of the challenges with this whole thing is like the consistency of it, you know, because George and I are both pretty committed to it. And dude, something cool that's we can probably talk about because when this comes out, it'll already be out. But we're going to be
Oh, yeah?
featured on LA Weekly, the
What?
online publication.
Your
You know?
podcast is?
Yeah, bro.
Dude.
It's really random how it happened.
Dude.
Yeah, it's pretty cool and random.
That's
how it
really
happened.
fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
It was like,
Hey, that's just like the perfect it's perfect example of like put yourself out there and things will happen, you know.
Yeah, man.
That's what you're telling me about the podcast. You're like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but we're gonna try it, and
Yeah.
and you're doing it, man. So
that's
That's
it, bro.
amazing.
We're
That's
just
awesome.
trying to get past episode 21. That's been a goal that we've set for a long time. I mean, we have a
Get
lot
there,
more
bro.
goals than that, but
yeah,
I think there was like some statistic that was saying if you get past episode 3, you're already in the top 10 percentile of podcasts because people don't even record 3 episodes and all of them out there. And then if you get past episode 21, you're in the top 10 percentile of that top 10 percentile because people don't last to episode 21, you know?
yeah,
So-
dude.
And we'll get there too, because I mean, this doesn't like feel like a job. I feel like that's why most people probably quit doing it, because it's like, oh, I gotta get up and get ready
Yeah,
for
bro.
this.
90% is showing up, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dog, you see
Real talk.
this?
What is that? You get punched?
From jiu-jitsu, baby. That's from
Dude.
jiu-jitsu.
You're the you're the
I'm the punching
you're the
bag.
Brendan Schaub of podcasting, bro.
Dude. Yeah, I don't know.
Except
I
better.
wouldn't say
Except
I'm
better.
Brendan Schaub. Brendan Schaub. I like Brendan Schaub, man. He's
I love
he's
him.
cool, man.
I love him.
You know, I used
I
to
love
listen
the
to him,
person
and I used to
he's
listen to the
from,
Fighter
too.
and the Kid all the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
I kind of slowed up, but
I did
a
too.
little bit here and there. But he's good.
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's
a perfect
funny.
example of like coming from one world and then realizing that like he's more than that. You know?
Exactly.
And Joe Rogan showed him that from that one podcast episode they had, where he's just
Well,
like, bro,
it's always
you
cool.
don't
The
to
one
see-
where he's like shitting on him.
Yeah, he's
he's
like,
like,
dude.
he's like, I think you'd be surprised. I know, I think you'd be surprised, Brendan.
yeah. You remember that one, Isaac?
Brutal.
No, I don't.
Brutal.
So
He was
basically,
shitting on Brendan Schaub.
Schaub's well, because he's on the back
Joe
of
was.
his career in the UFC, because he was a football player, so he was an athlete going to fight. And then basically he was telling him like, hey, you've lost like 3 out of your last 5 fights. Like, how do you think you would do if you had to do like a jiu-jitsu role with Glover, another heavyweight?
Glover
He's
Teixeira?
like, I think I'd, yeah. And then he was like, I think I'd surprise you. And then he's like, I think you'd be surprised. He's like, Brendan,
I think you get your ass kicked.
He's like, I'm telling you this because I'm your friend, but I don't think you got it, dude. It's time to hang it up in the UFC. And this is like a live. I think it was like a live.
damn.
Yeah, dude.
It was rough. But
And it got awkward, but it was like, but that's what real friends do. They tell you things
Yeah, dude.
that like you don't want to hear, and you're probably upset in the moment, but then later on you're like, I respect it because they care. about me.
100. You have to.
Yeah.
You got to tell your boys things that.
There's an old saying that goes like, a true friend, like if you have bad breath, will pull you aside and give you a piece of gum. But then like
A real
that was
friend.
in a whole nother, that's in front of the world though. He basically told
Yeah.
him, your breath sucks, dude.
I know the saying. It's like a good friend will bail you out of jail. A real friend will be sitting there laughing with you, alongside you. That's a real friend. The one that's in jail
Yeah.
with you. I don't know. I don't want to
in
go
the
to jail.
cell.
I don't want to go to jail. All right, so as you can see, this is exactly how it goes, Reed boy. You've listened to a few episodes.
Dude.
This is what it's
I
like.
have, man. Well, let me just say,
We're just kicking.
and let me just say, and I'm sorry if this seems like I'm kissing your ass, but it's cool to be on a podcast that I like actually listen to. I do listen to you guys all the time, bro.
You do?
So I do, man. Yeah, I do.
He does.
I do.
He's one of
Appreciate it, man.
our the most loyal people from the onset. He's always like, bro, when's the new Cafe con podcast
I know.
coming out? Dog?
I'm like, you got
I
get on
need
a
it.
tight schedule here.
I need it for the
I
ride.
need that shit for my ride. Yeah, my ride to work. I ride my bike to work, so I'm like, I need that.
I think you deserve this as well. Just in case you forget. Just in case you forget.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.
1 second.
We
I think
forgot.
you're gonna
Thank you.
like this. You just give me a second.
This is the Cafe con Podcast.
Let's go. We always
Reed, how does
gotta
it feel
play.
being on the other side of the camera now?
How does it feel?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like
From watching our episodes to now being on.
Oh, right,
I know
right.
it's
Being
still
on
early.
it?
I know it's
It's
still
cool, man. It's a trip. It's like I'd never been on like a real podcast. I had some friends back in the day when we were doing comedy that like we would like you'd be like, yo, meet me at the cafeteria, and he would like put his phone on the table and record that way. And we just talk shit for a while, and then he'd release it, and I think it has like 3 listens somewhere. But
Hell yeah, dude.
so
Hell yeah, dude. I was
yeah,
doing
that's
that
just starting, man. Yeah.
I was doing that with Sky for a little bit. Because we'd have our balcony sessions where we go out and just like whatever drink out there, we'd smoke out there, and I would always just put my phone. Well, not always. There was a period of time for maybe like 2 weeks that I'd said, let's just record what we talk about out here. Let's just record it and see what happens. And she was always like, why? Why are we gonna, what are we gonna, for what? And I go, I don't know. Let's just record it. And we have random recordings of all that shit. So that's, dude.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That was a good question, George. And actually, this is a good segue. I didn't even tell George about what you and I talked about what you did, right? Because I know we're going to get into that. But just so you know, George, I wanted to also talk to Reed. This man did, how long was it? 1,000 miles?
1,000 miles.
1,000-mile bike ride from Colorado to where?
To Canyonlands in Utah.
To Canyonlands. Have you ever seen 127 Hours, the James Franco movie, where he has to cut off his elbow because he plays the hiker that gets stuck in the canyon and his arm is like up? What? That's a good
I
movie.
need to see that.
That's a good movie. That's a really good movie. So he went to that Slot Canyon, right? Is that what it's called? Slot Canyon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did that all by yourself?
Yeah, by myself.
Bro.
Took about 23 days, 1,000 miles.
He called me on the phone and he was telling me on the phone and I was like, what? I was super hype and happy for you, but I was also like, you're crazy, bro.
Yeah,
Wait
man.
until you listen to this thing.
Yeah,
It was a crazy time. Yeah.
We can hop into that if you want, but first
You want to hop into it?
I also wanted to talk about your drip, dog.
Sure.
I like your little chain and I like the
Thanks,
watch
buddy.
that you're wearing. What's up with that watch? What's up with that
I've
watch,
had it.
boy?
I've had it. Little watch action, bro. I know you're a watch guy,
Bro,
so
let's actually, before we
pop
get
the chain.
Yeah, pop that chain out, baby. Miami in the house. So,
Yes, sir.
Before we get into the bike ride, Reed showed me a YouTube channel. What's it called? What's the watch YouTube channel called?
Well, it's the channel's called Hodinky, but they do a a series called Talking Watches, where it's like a watch channel, and they just talk to people that collect watches and talk about the hobby and what they like about it. And yeah, I showed you the
John
fun,
Mayer
like
one.
Surprisingly enough, like John Mayer is maybe the John Mayer, Ed Sheeran's a big one too.
Yeah.
Marky Mark, they have they're huge like watch enthusiasts, and they collect tons of. So I kind of got into it. A friend of mine got me into it, and I showed Isaac, and it's kind of like, you don't realize there's a whole world of watches, and it's it's like people into shoes or jewelry or clothing or whatever, So
It's
I heard
so
that about John
intricate. It's so intricate to the specific watches that John Mayer has and how he talked about, oh, well, when this guy made this watch, he made it because of this, and he only made a certain amount because of this that was happening in his life. It's so, I'm always endlessly fascinated with the little random things that certain people love. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love fountain pens. I love fountain pens, and all different types of them. Hi, Mama. you want to go back out? Hold on, I gotta let my dog out. Yeah, wait.
I know. I just left the door open for my dog. I was like, I'm not gonna have to go back and forth. Let's see that watch one more time, big dog. Let me see it. Ooh, I can see my reflection in it. And we're back.
What is that? What kind of?
It's
a watch
nothing
is that,
crazy.
bro?
It's called a Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. So it's
Go ahead.
It's
go into it.
You want to
go
go
off,
into it?
King.
It's like
Go into it.
So this is the poor man's version of some really expensive unobtainable watches. So it's called an integrated bracelet because the bracelet goes straight into the watch.
Mm-hmm.
Integrated bracelet, steel sports watch, and the main big ones are like you probably heard it in rap songs, or Patek and AP are the two ones, but those are, you know, it's kind of bullshit. Like a lot of the shit in the industry is bullshit. You have to even buy that watch, you have to have bought a certain amount of stuff from them, and you have to be on a big wait list, and it's, I don't know.
What do you mean? What do you mean? To buy an AP, you have to be on you have to have bought a certain amount of stuff. There's like requirements.
So like the way that
it's crazy. Dude.
So the way that like Rolex, not all brands do this, but Rolex, Patek, AP especially, what they do is they create what's the word? They create false hype,
buzz, like
and
buzz.
by purposefully limiting who can buy their watches and when. So if you go in, if you want the cheapest Rolex, I don't know, it's like $6,000. It's just time only. It's nothing special. But if you go and ask to buy it, they'll just laugh at you. And they say, if you want to buy this, you have to have bought like this amount of jewelry from us. You have to have been on a wait list for this long. It's shitty. Like that's why. And so people really want these really specific watch models, but they can't buy them at retail. So what people end up doing is people that do get them at retail, they then flip them for like 3 times the price.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's a whole mess it's a whole mess.
So
but there's some companies that are more honest and better.
If you own like an AP, like if you want to buy a certain like model of an AP or like Richard Mille or anything, you have to have owned 1 or 2 before. And I was like, well, how does that make sense then? Like, how do you get the first one?
Yeah, exactly. How do you get that 1 or 2 beforehand?
You have to have a lot of what Rolex just did is Rolex just bought what's called Bucherer, which is the largest watch retailer in the world. It retails all kinds of different watches. So Rolex controls that now. So now what Rolex can do is they can say, if you want to buy a Rolex watch, you have to buy a certain amount of watches from these other brands before we let you buy one of our watches. It's just like the snobbery. The snobbery is
snobbery, but also
gross.
Business,
it's gross.
The business acumen and the business strategy. That's wild.
Yeah.
So Bucherer is what, George?
It's kind of whack, but it's smart. It is whack, but it's kind of smart.
Yeah, of course. It's whack for people that want to get into the game that can't get into the game, right? And they finally get enough capital, and they're like, oh, I have enough now to buy the cheap one, and they're like, no, you can't do that. So then let me get this straight. Bucherer is kind of like essentially they just are a retailer of a bunch of different types of watches, all different brands of watches, and then Rolex is now selling their watches through Bucherer. I mean, they own Bucherer, so okay.
So Rolex is like, if these other bands want to have any business, like we're going to take a cut of everything that we sell for them.
Wow, dog. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So then let's get into the watches a little more. What are the top? Because Reed, I'm telling you, dude. One day we were talking. I go, bro, you should sell watches, dog. You would literally, because he talks about the story of watches. Give us first off, how did you get into watches? I don't think I even asked you that.
Sure. My friend Brad Weaver. Shout out
Brad.
Shout out make him watch this later.
Shout out Weaves.
He kind of got me into it in college. Like I never really thought of it as being like a hobby. You know, I didn't realize it was one of those things where you're like, wait, people like are into this. People collect these things. And so in college, he kind of gotten into it a little bit. And I was like, whoa, that's a crazy watch that he had on. It was some aviation pilot watch. And he was like, yeah. And he kind of showed me all about it. And I was like, whoa, you know, and and showing me the movement and how everything works. And you realize like, oh, there's a whole little city in there of gears and wheels turning and like they're not all battery powered. Like this has a rotor in it. So if I move my wrist, it spins the rotor. And that's what powers the movement
to get it going again.
So yeah, I just kind of got the bug and started really researching it and getting into the history of it and the design. I love the design elements of it, and I suppose it's like getting into cars or
anything
art or any other thing. Yeah, exactly.
Like the pens that I love.
Pens,
I got into it. So the pen that I have now is a Pilot. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's a Pilot, and it's like the most expensive pen I've ever owned. Mm-hmm. But it writes the reason I love it is when it hits the page and it's like a hard page, like not cardstock, but a nice type quality paper.
I love that feeling,
bro. And you can hear it scratch on there, and it just moves. It's unreal. What happened? Yeah. So, the question that I guess keep going.
Sorry, I think what got me into it was his enthusiasm, and like the way you're talking about pens right now, like I would have never thought that there's people but I'm sure there is a whole community and forums on Reddit or whatever of people talking about different pens. And so it's enthusiasm like that is what's addictive. And then going down the rabbit hole, watching videos, you watch John Mayer talk about it and you're like, I like this now. Like this guy knows so much and he's so into it that it rubs off,
Enthusiasm for anything, I think is something that is hard to find when people love that. That's why I always tell Sky, if I just find one thing that somebody likes, I can talk to them about it. Right? That's all you got to do. Just find one thing. Okay, so going back to the watches. So you got into it because of that, because he had an aviation watch. Shout out Brad Weaver. So then what kind of what are some of your watches that you would say are like, if you could have this watch, it would be an unbelievable sort of day. The day that you put it on your wrist and you're like, this is my watch.
I try to be realistic about that and because
give realistic and also dream. Give both.
Sure.
You can do both.
Realistic, I think my like a good place to land for me is I think somewhere with Omega is a brand. James Bond wears Omega, Seamaster, dive watch. You can do anything with it. Omega also was the first watch. NASA bought watches from Omega to use on the moon. So all the astronauts wore an Omega Speedmaster on a giant band over their astronaut outfit.
You mean in the soundstage? The soundstage with Stanley Kubrick?
Oh yeah, with Stanley. Yeah, that was Stanley.
Got it.
So like they're great. They're probably Rolex's main competitor, but you can actually get a Omega. They don't buy into that hype and that artificial inflation type shit. But so that's probably like realistically. Unrealistically, dude, there's a lot, but you start getting into six figures and it's just ridiculous. And I think even wearing that, you just be like so scared all the time. It's like you get a Lambo and you don't want to drive it because you don't want to dent it. So
pretty sure you can probably get insurance on those type of like cars.
Sure,
you definitely can. But and the good thing is a lot of these brands just appreciate in value. So it's an investment. But
that's what my dad said.
But never buy never buy watches that are like flooded with diamonds and stuff. Always get the plain ones because those depreciate.
The diamonds?
Yeah, because it's like you edited it. It's not like the original one. You'll never really. I mean, you will see it's probably like a special edition, but a lot of times, like he was saying, like the rappers wear these type of watches.
Yeah.
If you get because like without the diamonds, it's called like a plain Jane, I guess you could say in the rapper world. And those.
And then they bring it to someone.
Yeah, and they bring it to someone.
And they drill a bunch of little holes in it and put diamonds in it.
So, I understand. So they essentially are augmenting the integrity of the original watch, the original way that it was.
You should never expect to sell for profit though. If you do that, if you keep it plain, like you're fine. Like it's an investment if you just keep it plain.
Smart man, you know your watches, Troy.
A little bit. I was never a watch guy growing up because playing sports, I could never like put stuff on my wrists or fingers.
Yeah.
But like I was wearing a very similar watch last night when I went out, the one you have on right now, and I love it. It's
Sick,
like
dude.
the design of it. What was the design again? You were saying how it like connects to the.
Hold that puppy back up. Let's see it. If you don't mind, hold that
Dude,
puppy up.
I don't want this to be a podcast about me.
Good. Who gives a shit, bro? This is exactly what it's about. I love watching.
So it's called an integrated steel sports bracelet. So there's this. I'm such a fucking nerd, dude.
What are you
so
talking
in the
about? Dog? This is
80s,
perfect. Take it off your wrist. Take it off your wrist and really show it to us.
Yeah, like
in the 70s. In the 70s, there was this. So I don't know if you can see the movement, but there's the rotor moving inside.
Yeah, we could. I could. Yeah, actually, I can see
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
See that
Yeah.
shaking?
Yep.
So in the 70s, there was something called the quartz crisis, which when electric powered watches, Japanese like Seiko quartz crystal watches came on the market, and they're just infinitely more accurate than mechanical watches, and they like were threatening putting like the whole Swiss watch industry out of business because and like generations of watchmakers, handing down through the lines. And then there was this guy named Gerald Genta who sort of is credited with saving the Swiss watch industry, and he came up with this idea of making a steel watch that was like elegant with like a nice bracelet, and that's kind of the design he came up with. So this is sort of based off of his original design. The main watches that he designed were the AP Royal Oak and Patek Philippe Nautilus, and those are the ones that are just impossible to get now. But so this is my version of dipping my toes in that pool.
The same design. It feels great on the wrist, right?
Yeah, it's comfortable, super comfortable.
It's very.
Dude, AP and Patek Philippe have been around for a long time. Then they're like a legacy brand almost. They've been around for a minute.
I think I think they both started in 1800s, probably.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The oldest watch company is Blancpain, and it started in the 1700s.
Wow. Okay. And you keep saying the Swiss. I know that there's obviously a lot of watches are made in Switzerland. But
Switzerland.
What are you talking about when you say the mechanical watch industry versus and then the Japanese? So Seiko obviously is a huge watch brand as well.
So this was before watches were more of a tool. They weren't so much of a style. Like we don't really need them now. I can look at my phone and get a more accurate time reading. But so the Japanese came out with this quartz movement of battery powered and electronic watches, and it was way more accurate. So like all of a sudden technology was going to put this whole art form and this whole engineering lineage out of business until this guy came up with this idea of like, let's make something really different and stylish. And so that's kind of what this is based off of. And when he made that, people said, oh, this is actually cool. This is like a cool thing to get into. Not just a tool anymore.
Of the people that made it, was it like all in Switzerland versus all in Japan? Where were watches? Because I'm assuming, I don't know. I don't know if they started in Switzerland or not. But I went to Switzerland and I saw watches everywhere when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Japanese came along. The Japanese made these electric watches, or the quartz movement, like you were just talking about. So, why is Switzerland such? Do you know why it's such a mainstay in watches?
I'm trying to think. I don't know exactly why Switzerland
also
is that way precisely.
You don't have to answer if you're not. Let's just go off the bat here. We have no idea. We're just kicking it. Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the British were. Though at one point the British were the biggest watchmakers and the most advanced watchmakers, and then I don't know why it moved into Switzerland. I just assume, I don't know.
There's money there.
But money, yeah. The Germans make really good watches as well. For a while, when it was pocket watches, it was American pocket watches that were the best, and they standardized. They standardized the way of making watches to make them all accurate, because the railroad drivers needed accurate watches, because there was a massive rail crash between two trains because two guys' watches weren't synced up. So that's a big company was Ball. American company ball. If you know the expression on the ball, that's where that comes from. Is ball pocket watches.
No
Yeah.
way.
So
Damn, you know a lot,
yeah.
bro. Reed, I'm not letting you off the hook though. All right, I
Yeah.
want you to answer the question. What's your like dream watch?
Oh, good.
I don't have
good
one
call.
specifically. I think I don't have one like completely specifically, but I think my favorite brand is a German brand called Zona, and they just the engineering of what they make and the movements are just stunning and incredible.
I won't leave you in the dark though with that question because I wanted to answer it too, so that's why I brought
Get
it back
it,
up.
get it, bro.
I would say like a nice little like simple Cartier. I don't know why.
Yeah, like a tank. Yeah, they're beautiful.
Like if I had the funds for that, I'd definitely get one.
Like a little gold Cartier, all gold.
No, just like a silver one, just like a real simple one. You know, I don't know. I just think they're really nice.
Classy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
classy,
a different
bro.
pace compared to like your typical Rolex. It's maybe they're usually a little bit smaller, but they're just the gloss on them. I think looks amazing.
Yeah,
Understated,
I would agree with that too, man. I feel like Cartier's a fine tip point pen. You know, where Rolex would be like the gaudy, you know, big.
And yeah, they've
sort
never
of.
gone
Definitely.
like in like notoriety. They've never gotten like too high or too low. I think they've just been
Cartier.
like
Is
in
that
the middle.
is that where's that made? Switzerland?
France.
It's French.
French.
Yeah, it's
They
Okay,
they use Swiss movements, but the brand is.
What does that mean? What does Swiss movements mean? That you just threw out a term right there. It sounds like it's something that I should know what it is, and I have no idea what that means.
It's so they like their watches are manufactured in Switzerland,
Okay.
but by Swiss watchmakers. But the brand is a French brand.
Does movements mean like the way that the gears turn and the way they place
The
everything?
movement, yeah, the movement is the mechanics on the inside.
I see. Also, before we get into the road trip, which I know we're going to get into that, I've never asked you guys about this. How was the car ride from San Francisco to Yosemite?
Oh,
It was fine.
Yeah,
I
because
thought
you
it
were
was fine.
driving, Reed.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Dude, I feel like
It was a little-
I felt like a Billy Goat, just like my life on a string for 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Were you driving?
I was trying.
Yeah, he was.
Dude,
driving.
it wasn't that bad.
I remember
I
he
guess
got out
maybe
of the
I'm
car.
used to it because I'm in the mountains.
Yeah, when you guys got there and he got out of the car, I just remember George Michael going like this.
Fucking
I remember
dude.
him literally just going up. That was
Because
fun.
Reed, we don't have like terrain like that out here. It's
True.
flat.
Yeah.
And
True.
then
I remember. That's bringing back memories now. If you guys were freaking out a little bit.
I wasn't freaking out, but I was just definitely like
Kyle wanted
super
to get
focused.
out of the car. Kyle was like,
And there were
"I
certain
am
times
done."
too where our lane was on the edge of the mountain sides. So it's like
Yeah.
everybody's having a good time
Sorry,
in the
one
back
sec.
seat, and I gotta like keep it together.
Dog, and I remember one of my cousins got there, pulled up, and he had driving gloves on. He had driving gloves on.
Gloves.
I listen. It wasn't
Great
horrible.
Gatsby.
It was actually a beautiful car ride. I mean, being in the back seat, I've done that before with Isaac and Sky and his friends. It's definitely a way more beautiful experience. But I would do it again if I needed to. Definitely drive up there.
You guys came in the way too. When the way from San Francisco is a little more windy,
Yeah.
so it's more windy and it's a little. It's not that it's steeper. It's just more windy, especially
And then
because we're on the
also,
north
too,
side.
The time we did it at, it was already the sun. Remember, it got dark by the time we got to the hotel.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
like,
You
the
guys
back-
were there in the dark.
The last like 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm almost there. Fuck, it's getting dark. I'm almost there. It's getting dark. So it's like you want to go fast, but you can't go fast.
Oh, bro,
Yeah.
what a great time! And then just being
a
in
great
that
trip.
cabin. Once you hit that cabin, though, once you hit that little site, you're like, it's time to fucking party. Let's go.
Epic wedding location.
Oh man, it was. We rewatched the wedding video last night, and then we don't have to get into it. But I was like, oh, I'm not gonna cry right at the beginning because I had hit the pensito like 3 times, and we were watching it, and my eyes were a little glossy, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is my experience now with the video. And then a certain part in the video hits, and then I'm just weeping, and I'm like, oh my god, bro, I cry every time I look at that thing. It's awesome. It's
As
awesome.
you should, man.
Yeah, it was a
you
great
should.
time. Okay, let's get away from me.
The 1,000-mile bike ride.
Yes, bro.
I got
All right. Talking
start-
about enthusiasm.
So what came to? How did this idea come to your mind? Like what?
Oh man.
Was it like certain little like instances, or like one day you're just like,
And I can give a little background if you want me to give a little background from what I know. and then
Sure.
obviously you fill in the blanks. I know that
Sure.
Reed has always been somebody also that has done things that have been like he went didn't you go camping with your uncle and sleep in ice?
Yeah. Yeah.
He slept in
Sleeping an
ice.
cave.
He slept in an ice cave, bro. Yeah,
Oh my
furl your brows because that's exactly what I did. I go, what are you talking about? You sleep on ice.
Where was that?
What does that mean? So he's done things like this that are. Don't you got to get your don't go now. You still got to get your German man, bro. You got a few more years. You know,
all right, I won't die. I won't die yet.
Heisenglufen is waiting for you. Okay,
we'll cut that out. Yeah.
No, we keep that in, baby. So,
Oh,
just to preface all this with saying that Reed is not foreign to doing extreme things, right? And I know when I saw him last, you were talking about wanting to do something wild, just something crazy like that. So now you can kind of take off from there.
all right. This is interesting because I sort of was talking. This is a good question because this was sort of one of the questions in the pre-interview questions that I filled out, and it really like made me think and get a good answer to this question that I'm not sure that I had before. It started when, I came back from LA when COVID happened and kind of just, I don't know, felt like stagnating a little bit, not really pursuing things, kind of getting into a bit of a fear mindset of what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't?
What were you in LA
Whatever.
for? Let's give a little background
Sure.
just quickly on that. That's where you and I met, obviously.
That's where I met. Yeah, me and Isaac and I met. Yeah, I went out to LA to pursue acting and comedy, and I started with doing stand-up in high school and college, and then once I graduated college, and then got into acting in college, into theater, and then left to go try that in LA and lived there for about a year. And then COVID hit, came back, and it never ended up going back, and never and kind of fell off. I wouldn't really say that I'm an actor anymore, or I just haven't done it. You know, I think I might at some point again, but it's started focusing on other things, and a lot of it, what I think was sort of tied in with insecurities and things I had experienced in LA, of sort of talking to other people, of realizing it's not necessarily a pure meritocracy. And even if it was, I might not be good enough. You know, it's such a hard thing to measure acting talent, you know, and seeing really amazing people do really well and seeing really not great people do well, and vice versa. And so I just I think I was feeling kind of jaded and upset, and kind of like I had no control over my destiny, I guess, for lack of a better word, of what I wanted to do. And, you know, I have come up with ways of trying to frame this better in my mind to make myself look better. But I think the truth is I just kind of quit, you know, and I'm okay with saying that now, you know? And so I started focusing on, I don't really know what I want to do. You know, I'm working on a pizza place, you know, I'm living with my parents at home, you know, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice to save money, but it's also I want to get out there, you know, I want to be back out there. And I thought, I don't really know what I want to do then, because this is acting and comedy is kind of all I ever thought I was going to do. And then, so I kind of got into a bit of depression, and I ended up seeing a Joe Rogan interview actually with this guy, the power of podcasts, man. Yeah, man. With this English man who biked about 45,000 miles in 4 years so he biked from his home in England to the furthest points in Europe, Asia, and Africa.
Holy shit.
And I was like, I've always sort of been attracted to crazy things. Like acting and comedy felt crazy to me when I first started it. Like everyone else is going off to be a lawyer, business school, and I thought, no, I want to do something off the beaten path. And it felt, you know, it is sort of dangerous, and it felt dangerous to go out there and audition, and you're in the rat race with people, you know, and it was exciting. So I kind of wanted that back. I wanted a feeling like that back. And when I read that, I thought, wow, it's just, I'd never thought that anyone could do such a thing. And it made me think about the freedom of what doing that would be like. It made me think about fulfilling, making your 5-year-old self happy when you said you wanted to be an explorer or whatever. Like, oh, you can actually do that. You might not make money, but you can make a choice to go do something crazy. And so I sort of obsessed about this trip for a long time, and I planned and started, and I read, well, he had a couple books and I read them, and it made me more obsessed. And so I thought, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to save up some money and I'm going to do that. So I have a much bigger trip coming next year, but I thought to myself, I need to at least get a bike and some equipment and test this out and see how it is. And so I thought, yeah, I'll do this 1,000-mile thing and set a goal of roughly 3 weeks. And that's kind of how this trip came about. And so it's a great learning experience, a great test drive. And it was wonderful at the same time also.
And then we'll get into the specifics, but I want to tackle a couple of
Sure.
things in what you were just talking about there. I think just applicable to kind of anybody, especially as you get older, something that I've seen as well is the idea, and a lot of times merit is only going to take you so far in the world's eyes to a certain degree. And I think that meritocracy intrinsically is something that helps me in terms of my mental balance, knowing that, like, all right, I gave it my all. Right. I was talking to Sky about sports yesterday, and how one of the things that I love about sports is we were watching the Canelo fight. I don't know if you guys saw the Canelo fight. He worked.
I didn't.
Charlo worked him. I mean, Charlo gained 14 pounds or whatever. Bro, he worked him. Anyways, the point is, all even playing field, everybody's healthy, everybody's at the top of their game. We're both giving it our all. You beat me, fair enough, right? Because I know that I gave it my all.
Exactly.
So I think that intrinsically, the idea of meritocracy for myself helps me. Number one, that was something that I thought when you were talking about that. Number two, man, that's good on you, dog. I'm proud of you for just saying things plainly as it is, right? Not trying to shield yourself, because we shield ourselves a lot of times to try and make ourselves feel better, but saying things the way that it is hard. So good fucking job, dog.
Thank you.
That ain't easy to do.
I mean, because it's embarrassing a little bit, and I'm one of these people that I've noticed about myself is that I can talk a big game and not always walk the walk. And I don't like that quality in myself. And I try to squash that as much as I can. But this sort of, I think I learned a big lesson with acting things, because I told everyone, I'm going to LA. I'm the next so-and-so. I mean, maybe not in so many words, but it was like, I'm doing this thing. I'm actually going to go do it. And then to be like, people will be like, so what happened? Be like, oh yeah, it didn't really work out. Like, it's a little bit humiliating. Yeah. And so, but I'm trying to follow through now. And I think part of that is just admitting, like, yeah, I stopped doing it. That's on me. There's definitely a chance I could have been successful if I kept at it, but I didn't have whatever that is that you need for that business. So I'm okay. Like, it took a while for me to say I'm all right with admitting that now, and I'll take it. I'll take all the I told you so's with it.
Yeah, dude. And fuck them.
Anyways,
Anyways,
bro. At least
exactly. Fuck them, dog. People.
Yeah.
Go ahead, George.
I take that mindset now with, like, the dating scene that I've been in. Like, I've engulfed myself in, because, I mean,
you've been talking a big game and not backing.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking.
It's more so. It's always that when I have, like, a little pause. He knows when to fly. But it's more so of, like, at least you did it, right? So what I apply that to when I'm like on the dating scene is go up to a girl and talk to her. If she says no, she says no. At least you did it, right? At least you went out there and you said, you know what? I probably wasn't cut out for it for X, Y, and Z, but I did it, and now it's not going to keep me up at night. Not that I didn't do it. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and I think that's good too to like, I mean, obviously it hurt a bit. It stung a bit because it's something that's near and dear to you. It's a part of your identity, but I think it's a good example for everybody listening to just do things that you like. It's not your dream, but something you thought of, right? Like for instance, like that 1,000-mile bike ride, right? Easily like, 500 miles in, you could have said, you know what, this is not for me. I'm gonna go take a plane ride back home, or I'm gonna hitchhike or something. But at least you tried, because you, like I said, I've been very introverted most of my life, but now in this time of my life, I feel like I'm blossoming in a sense where I need to try things, because I tell myself 2 hours from now, I don't want to be upset at myself because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So So I think, dude, it seems like you have a good way of applying that mindset to things you want to do. For instance, like you brought up the next trek you're going to take on that bike ride. You didn't go into much detail about it, obviously, because you don't want to talk the talk and you haven't walked the walk yet, but you already have it in mind, right? So it sounds like you're going to do it. So kudos to you, dude.
Yes.
It's got to be scary for people to move out to LA and in the first place, and you did it. So that's something that's not for nothing,
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. And I mean, I can say that I tried, that's fine.
That's a lot more than a lot of people can.
You gotta just
100%.
try. That's the end of the day. You just gotta try.
100. Oh my God. Who was I talking to? I was literally saying that, what you just said, George, to somebody recently, which was, you just got to try. Even if it doesn't happen, you just have to try. That's it. You just got to try. If not, like, the sun's going to go up, sun's going to go down. And the older that I've gotten, something else that I've realized is, in my mind, the way that I tackle procrastination is, if I think about doing something, I just do it right then and there. Even if something as small as like, oh man, I should probably make the bed, I just go make the bed. I don't. But it's taken me 30 years to do it, because before I'd be like, all right, no, I know that's something else I have to do. Got it. And I just keep it all in my brain, and then I don't do it. Right. Or it's like, oh, I have to cook this chicken before it goes bad. Literally small stuff like that. I'm like, all right, fuck it, I got to do it right now. So I just go and start cooking right then and there, because if not, I put it off, and then the chicken fucking smells just a little bad when I'm cooking it. The bed's not really made at night. It's like little things like that. The longer you put it off, the longer it's going to pile up. And I like at night to be able to, fucking chill, sit in my bed, read, fucking be with my wife, my dog, not do anything without the cloud in my head of, oh man, I didn't do that thing that I thought that I was going to do today. Right. So
Reed, where'd you? I want to get into nitty gritty of this 1,000-mile bike ride before we pivot, because I do want to get into the questions that you sent back to us, the answers. Sure. Because there was like one or two that really resonated with me. Where did you sleep, bro? Like, what did you do? The in betweens. I don't want to know like just the headline story. I want to read like the details, the devil's in the details.
And and tell them about the extensive training you did beforehand as well.
No training. I didn't train at all.
Bro, he didn't train, bro. He didn't train.
You were bike riding like in like your whole like day to day, right?
Yeah, I averaged probably about 50 miles a day for 21 days. But a lot of that was climbing in the mountains. I think the amount of feet that I climbed, I think I like 50,000
on the 500 on the 1,000-mile bike ride. 50,000. Going up. Yeah. No, bro. Wow.
Where did you sleep?
Because you go way up and then you go over a mountain pass and you go down and then it's like okay. So I had a bivy sack. So bivy sack is like, what a bivy sack is? No. For those who don't, it's smaller than a tent. It's just like, it's basically, you can fit a sleeping bag in it and then it zips over you. So there's no tent poles and there's nothing holding it up. It's just it's basically like having a waterproof shell over your
It's
sleeping
like
bag.
a hammock and a tent had a baby.
Sort of. It's not hanging.
Okay.
It's just on the ground. So I would set that up on the side of the highway, or I would go into the woods wherever I could find. One night I slept in an alley in Grand Junction, under a railway bridge a couple nights, anywhere.
The
Yeah.
reason I want to ask too, because if you can kind of get into like, I think a revolving theme, and one of the revolving things in this podcast that we have is we ask people like, okay, you're here now in your life, right? Because we've had several people here that are like doing well in their career, and then we want them to like tell us the beginning and the end, but we also want the in betweens. Like, so was there certain moments where you're like, this is not glamorous? Like, there's just certain low points in this.
Oh,
Like it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, can you kind of like
Sure.
harp on that? How was that? Like, maybe like a mile 200, you're like, damn, this shit's fucking quiet and dark, you know? But it is what it is. Like, if you can kind of,
yeah. It's people talk about type 2 fun, where it's fun in retrospect, but not necessarily while you're doing it. Or you're glad that you had the experience. So I wouldn't say that it was like, whoopee, like hurrah, fun all the time. It was hard. It was extremely hard, and it was very grueling, and it was hard exercise, and quite uncomfortable a lot, and after the first couple of days, I wanted to quit because my legs were just destroyed and my ass was destroyed, and just hurt so bad. But then there's a point where you sort of get into a rhythm, and you sort of ride yourself into shape, I guess. And then the legs, your legs start doing what you ask of them without much complaint. And you fall into this rhythm of the day to day. But yeah, there were some parts that were extremely uncomfortable of not having enough food, or not having enough water, or the heat in Utah, because I went in July and there was this massive heat wave at the time, and it was pretty dangerous actually in retrospect. And but it sort of hit when I was there, and it was just brutal. But then you wake up the next day and you're like, well, that was kind of cool. It reminds me of when I went on this hiking trip with my uncle in Washington in the snow, and we just were so unprepared, and we did not have warm enough clothing or warm enough sleeping bags, and we dug a snow cave into the side of a snowdrift and slept inside of it one night, and just the coldest I've ever been. Like, I know, probably near hypothermic, extraordinarily cold. You shiver. It's to the point where you almost start to feel warm, like
so cold,
like when you get into a hot tub on a cold night, and it's like, yeah, it was like a version of that.
Wow.
And I remember like the wind is howling, and he's in his own little snow cave, and the wind is howling, and I just hear over the wind just, I go, what's that? What was that, Bill? One more time, Bill. What was that? This is what it's all about, nephew. Like, and just miserable at night. And we woke up the next morning. He's like, if you don't have a few times on your trip when you're like, why the fuck did I do this? Then it wasn't a good trip. You need a few times on that so the bike trip was a lot of that, a lot of, oh God, why did I do this? But also like really rewarding at the same time, and really beautiful, and the places I got to see and met some really cool people. And so
when you got to your destination, did you bike ride back, or did you just post?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I was going to ask. How long did it take? How long were you out?
23 days total.
And then
So
you averaged how many would you say? How many miles a day would you say you averaged when you were riding? Because I know there's a couple of days that you were hiking.
Yeah, I probably averaged about 50 miles a day when I was riding.
Solid.
Okay. So that's why I wanted, like, for the people that did listen to this to get the proper image. You started in Boulder and went to where Canyonlands in Utah. right?
Yeah.
Now, was it exactly 1,000? Talk about how you planned that out as well. Like, why Canyonlands from Boulder?
It wasn't exactly 1,000. I think it was
Round
the
trip, by
whole
the way.
trip.
We say 1,000 round trip. That's what
It's
we
round
mean.
trip. Yeah. It was probably ended up being like 1,050 round trip or something like that.
Damn near close.
But no, that was just kind of serendipitous little thing that happened. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good round number. I chose Canyonlands because I had always wanted to go to the site where that story happened, that 127 hours story happened, and it sort of felt, I don't know, it felt apt. It felt like a good ending place for a big journey. And I was having a hard time. I was dealing with some depression, just gone through a breakup, and was just like, I need to just go do something. Like, I need to take this feelings and move with them instead of just sitting here and see if they change and see what happens. And so I chose that place because I just, I'd sort of bonded with my girlfriend over that story, and I loved that, and I just had always loved that story, and just the idea of this man sort of who was kind of selfish and self-centered and can do everything on his own, and then gets stuck and realizes that he can't, and that he needs people, and that we all need people, and then has to make the ultimate sacrifice to save his life. And it's sort of a rebirth story, I guess. And so I thought, well, that seems like a good place to have the end of the trip be. So I went, I found that canyon, I found that rock where it happened. So that's kind of how I chose Canyonlands. And it just happened to be about 1,000 miles. And I was like, oh, just an added little bonus.
That's crazy.
That is
up.
deeply metaphorical. Deeply metaphorical. Okay, so we kind of talk about the first day when you're riding. I want to know, in your head, are you just kind of focused on the goal? Are you just kind of, do you think, what am I doing? What is going on in your head when you take that first pedal away from Boulder? Were your parents like, goodbye, or they weren't even there to wave you off?
My mom actually was not there. She had gone on a trip.
Was that by design? Did you do that on purpose to leave when she was
no,
on a trip?
I didn't. But yeah, I started off. I thought, okay, well, I sort of had this idea in my head, and the guy, his name's Charlie Walker, who did the massive journey. He sort of talks about this also.
The British guy that you were talking about.
Yeah, about not getting super in depth with planning and just having a destination where you're going, and just sort of having the mindset of like, well, I guess I'll get there if I just keep pedaling. And that's kind of what I thought too. I gave myself permission to give up. Also, I said if I have to stop at some point, then that is what it is, and I'll take the L or whatever. But there's no shame, And so that took the pressure off of like, this is where I'm going, and it just kind of put me in the moment of just trying to at least to enjoy the process of getting there. And then, the first day was a big climbing day, real steep, one of the hardest of the trip. And so, it just quickly fell into a rhythm of riding 20 yards, getting off, pushing 20 yards uphill, riding, and then you just sort of forget about everything else. And it really does, like, heavy, intense exercise like that I think is the best way to keep you like truly present. And so, and then I eventually just kind of stopped thinking, and I was just in it. And I didn't have any headphones with me or couldn't listen to anything. So it's just
What did
alone.
you take on your journey? Talk about what you took on your journey.
What did I take? I took 2 shirts.
What kind of shirts are we talking though? T-shirts? Like,
I took one T-shirt.
What are you taking?
One old T-shirt that I work out in. One T-shirt and one like more adventure-y hiking button-down breathable nylon shirt.
I was ready to hear like Canteen, like a Yeti. I brought T-shirts, bro.
No, I brought 2 shirts. Yeah, dude. I brought 2 shirts, 1 pair of shorts, 1 pair of pants, 3 pairs of underwear, 3 socks. That's all for clothing. Toothbrush, toiletries, roll of toilet paper, and then the rest was like a little camping towel, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, bivy sack, rain jacket, hat, sunglasses, just the basics, just the really bare minimum.
Dude, when you'd have to unload your intestines, you would just go. Would you dig a hole in the woods? What would you do, dog?
Unload my intestines.
Yeah, when you had to
If I
disload
had to
the
take,
cargo.
yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I wouldn't dig a hole, but I would go hide myself somewhere in the woods, and
bro.
squat behind a tree or
That's
something.
wild. That's
Well,
wild, dog.
I was able to find, that there weren't a ton of days. There,
You can find
maybe
bathrooms.
half the days were like that, but you can find little towns along the way or bathrooms some here and there.
That would be me, dude. I remember I had to take the only time I've ever been one with nature in that way was on the overnight hike in Norway, and there was no trees around. So I literally there was only stones. We were so high up, there's no trees. So it's open, and it was a crowd, and I go, dude, I'm gonna shit my pants if I don't go and do this right now. I've got a turtle head that was poking out. So I was like, I just went up there and I said, fuck it. I just hid behind the giant stone, and people saw, let them see, baby. Nature's glory.
Just Sky stand there with a towel.
Well, Sky the entire time. I remember because I was gone for maybe like 10 minutes and it was fucking cold. And she I remember her coming up and being like, hello? And I go, I'm okay. And she's like, okay, just making sure. Okay, sorry. So you packed basically nothing. And you packed, what's your water supply looking like? How was it, like a gallon of water? What was the actual container that you had your water in?
So I had 2 water bottles, just, not much bigger than this. But the catch is one of them is this fancy schmancy water bottle that I bought that can filter basically any water. So I would get all of my water from, rivers and lakes and puddles. And
I was going to say a puddle in Grand Junction. When you slept in Grand Junction, a puddle
in an alley. Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, when in towns, I got a lot of Gatorade along the way. I'd buy stuff here and there. I fill up places, but definitely a lot of using the rivers and stuff like that.
Cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on your journey. The first night, tell them about the experience you had. I don't know if it was the first night, but you went to go see. Yeah. That's a good story.
I was just first night I was in this little sort of mountain town, and there weren't a lot of trees around, but I found a little like forested inlet, and it was sort of right next to this big restaurant. And it seemed like there was a party going on at the restaurant or something, and there's a lot of people there. So I was like, all right, whatever. Went into the trees, a couple 100 yards, start setting up my little tent and camp area. And as I'm walking by, there's just a guy on this path in a full tuxedo. And he's just staring at this tree, like face to face with this tree with his back to the path, just like. And I was like, what is this? Did I walk in on some like mob hit or something? It was a little off-putting. I'm like, because I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. Like there is a restaurant, there's people, but there's just a random dude in a tuxedo in this woods. And I was like, all right. And I start setting up my camp, and he's sort of looking at me like he doesn't want me there. And he's sort of looking at me like concerned, and he seems anxious. And then I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't know. Do your thing. I don't know what you're waiting for. And then I look up the path, and and walking down the path is a photographer and a woman in a full wedding dress. And I realized that they were doing a first look. And I get up and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, let me get out of here. Cause there would have just been a dude like cooking beans on a stove behind, it wouldn't have made any sense. So I was like, sorry, dude. And I run by and I was like, sorry guys, congrats, sorry. But yeah, man. That was a funny anecdote of the first night.
Oh man, that is hilarious. Oh, that's so funny. So, George, you mentioned hitchhiking earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, my man right here took it back to the 70s, and he actually hitchhiked sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
There was there were a few times where mostly I was on sort of side roads that follow next to Interstate 70 or bike paths.
was it a straight
surprisingly
shot
lot of bike
also?
paths.
Was it a straight shot from on I-70?
Yeah, I-70 is a straight shot.
Okay.
Yeah, into the road in Utah.
Okay.
But so it was basically a straight shot. But there were times when, a few times, 5 times or so, when there wasn't a road, other than I-70, and I biked on I-70 for like 5 minutes, and I was like, I'll die if I do this. This is insane, because it's semis hurling past you, and there's a shoulder, this wide, and it's illegal. It's fucking stupid. Like a cop yelled at me, and so I was like, all right, I can't do that again. So that was sort of a bummer because I was like, damn, it's ruined now. Now I'm not going to say I biked the whole thing, but I probably ended up biking 1,000 miles anyway. So a few times I would go up to people at gas stations and be like, probably smelling awful and dirty and just like, hey man, like I'm on this crazy trip. Can you give me a ride? And and it worked. It worked, and people would be like, yeah, sure. That's crazy, dude. And they loaded my bike in the truck and
That's fire.
I had a big knife, like survival knife, and I would put it in my waistband, and
Thank God.
and I would text my friends. I'd be like 2007 Ford Focus, license plate EL7635.
Yeah, bro.
Send.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be like, what was that? And I was like, oh, I was hitchhiking. That was the license plate. So
Just in case I get murdered.
yeah.
You know where
But
I
everyone
am.
was really sweet, and everyone ended up being really nice and cool. And so, yeah, it was a cool experience to say that I've done that.
Did you have any interesting conversations with the people that you were in the car with? Or no conversation? What was it like? You sat in there and it was just like...
Sometimes it was like that. Sometimes they wanted me to tell them about what I was doing, and they'd be like, whoa, it's crazy. Sometimes I would sometimes there's a couple times when I was spending a long time, like 4 hours or something, trying to find someone to give me a ride, and everyone was saying no, or I couldn't do it. And so I thought, I need to be more sympathetic. I need to be more pathetic rather than, because I got this kind of nice bike. And so I there's a couple times when I made up a story and I was like, yeah, I'm actually on a memorial bike ride for my wife that died. I told someone that, and then that worked immediately. They're like, oh, dude, yeah, please let me give you a ride.
No fucking way.
So
bro.
it's a little car. Maybe I'm tempting fate a little bit, and my future wife will die.
Well, everybody.
But it works
at some point.
Yeah,
But what, dude? What? And did they ask you? Oh, so tell us about your wife. You look so young. What happened?
And then I'd be like, shit.
Did they ask you? Did they ask you anything like that?
Yeah, they would, and I would just be like, I don't want to get into it.
Oh
Like, it's
my
too-
God!
It hurts too much.
Yeah, so I feel a little bad about that, but you do what you have to do, you know.
Yeah, you do what you gotta do,
And-
bro. Oh my God!
At least you weren't
That's-
completely you weren't scamming anybody though. Like you had to get somewhere, and you're like, if I like you said, I've become a little more mushy with my story. I'll get the ride.
Yeah.
So
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I only did that.
You
You
be
frame
a
it.
bum and trying to get money, and then you go to your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like you were somebody that needed.
I only
That's true.
used that tactic once when I really needed it, but I other than that, it was generally pretty straightforward finding a ride. And there was one time actually it was like 110 degrees in the desert in Utah, and I was riding on my way back, and I was low on water, and I just knew this is bad. So instead of putting my thumb out, I when a car was coming through, and I stopped it, and I was like, yo, you got to give me a ride, dog. I'm not asking. I mean, I didn't say it quite like that, but they were like, all right. And I paid for their gas,
Nice.
when we got to the next
Wow.
station. So.
That's good. And you're also you're not I look at you and
Yeah.
I'm like, I trust this guy. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be like, I don't trust this guy. You know, I mean, I probably wouldn't have stopped personally, but I get it. Okay, so
Right.
let's talk about. We covered a lot of specifics on that, and we don't have to get into like what was day 4 like. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Let's
Yeah.
let's get to the Canyonlands portion, because I think this is a really powerful portion of it as well. So you pull into Canyonlands, and is this when your feet were fucked up already at this point?
No, this was
Okay.
after when I got back.
Okay, so we'll get to that too.
Yeah. So Green River is the last city, not even, it's a little nothing town off the highway. And then before Canyonlands, and it's the last time it's paved. And then there's about a 50-mile road, dirt road that just goes into the desert, into Canyonlands, to where this canyon was that I was going to. Actually, I went to 2 canyons. But yeah, so I got rid of everything that I didn't need. So because I thought I just need to fill up on as much water as I possibly can, because I don't know how much of an opportunity there's going to be to find water in the desert, especially during this crazy heat wave. And by this point, I was riding almost exclusively at night. And
How was your body? Well, had you lost weight? Did you lose a lot of weight?
I didn't lose that much weight, to be honest, because I would like binge eat a lot of crap in town. I would get to a gas station, eat a bunch of ice cream and shit, because I was just so hungry. I mean, I wasn't that hungry, but like I just needed something. I needed calories. Like I lost a good amount of weight in Canyonlands because I ended up taking not nearly enough food, but I can talk about that in a second.
But we will get into your great preparation. We'll get into that. But, okay, so did you ditch everything at Green River? Is that when you ditched everything you didn't need?
I went a little bit outside of Green River, and I found a pile of rocks in the desert that I knew I could find again because it was a feature or whatever. And I got rid of, and I hid everything except the clothing I was wearing. So I hid.
How did you hide it? How did you hide it?
I just under the rocks in the little and covered it with sand. So I hid my sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, my bivy sack, my shelter, my all my extra clothing, my helmet, like everything that was going to weigh me down. And so I started just taking what I'm wearing, and I'm filling up with as much water as I can. I put about 3 gallon jugs at the gas station and strapped those to my bike, and brought my other bottles as well, and like 4 or 5 granola bars, and just left. And
this is when you're going the 50-mile road from Green River to the canyon?
So the first canyon I went to is called Horseshoe Canyon, and I wanted
4
to stop
granola
there.
bars, George. Did you hear that? 4 granola bars, dog.
So the truth is I hadn't been eating that much at this point, because there's just something about the heat, especially, that really takes your appetite away. And also I think a large part of that is the enormous amount of water I was drinking on a daily basis. It just you're just not hungry because you're just drinking so much water.
That makes sense.
And and so I thought to myself, I think this is only going to be a 2-day excursion. I estimated about a 2-day excursion. One day there, half a day, and then a day back, 2.5 days maybe. And so like 4 granola bars and a couple bags of almonds was about as much as I was eating in that amount of time. So I thought, well, I was really conscious about weight. So I was like, I don't want to carry more weight than I have to. So I'm like, let's just take this amount of food, probably like 1,000 calories a day, something like that. And just, and go, not very much. And that ended up being a mistake. But
any story that starts off with, well, I thought it was going to be a 2-day hike. Anything that starts off that way, let's just hear how it ends up. So go ahead.
So I waited for night, and I started biking into the desert on this dirt road. There's no one else is there. and other cars, and I bike for, I don't know, a few hours, 6 hours, and then I'm not quite at the trailhead yet, but I'm like, and the whole time I'm just following. I have a little GPS device, and I'm just following the line on this little GPS device. And
how did you program it? That's another key element in this whole thing. How did you program the GPS device?
So the way that it's not like it can connect to your phone, but the screen is pretty small. The screen's like about this big. And the way you program it is you go online and it's connected to your computer, and you can look at satellite images of the Earth and then draw lines of where you want to be walking eventually. So before the trip, I went online and I marked out all the lines of where I'm going to be riding into the desert and stuff like that. So that's how it was on my device. And so for this first part, there was a defined road, though it was dirt and pretty beat up and pretty bumpy and not a lot of fun. But I ended up, so I made about 6 hours, got tired, went to sleep, which just consisted of me just lying on the ground in my clothing, because I didn't bring a sleeping bag or anything else. So just lying there in the desert, and like ended up getting pretty cold. So shiver a lot, wouldn't sleep a whole lot. And I was like, damn, maybe I could have spared a little weight and brought the sleeping bag. But
he slept on the floor, bro. He slept on the ground.
Just in my clothing, yeah. just in the sand.
We've become so far removed. We've become so far removed. Like that's what we used to do centuries ago.
I know.
Yeah, it was kind of a spiritual experience in a way, like connecting to the past.
I do this and I'm like, you're crazy, but also there's a part of me that's incredibly admirable. I look at that and I go, whoa, dude, that is respectable.
Yeah.
I respect you for that, because that's intense. Okay, so it consisted of you shivering. Continue.
A lot of shivering, a lot of mosquito bites, a lot of ant bites. Pretty painful, not fun. Wake up, and you wake up and you're like, oh, thank God, and the sun's coming up, but then it's going to get really hot again, but you enjoy it while you can, and then so I got to the next trailhead.
This is day two, right?
Day 2, yeah. So okay. I got to morning of day 2, I get to the first trailhead. It's called Horseshoe Canyon. It's actually connected to the other canyon that I was going to go to, but not in a way that you can access the other canyon. So I hiked that first canyon the first day because there's these like 4,000-year-old petroglyphs in that canyon of paintings, really cool paintings of figures. And like some really small, like dogs and people, but they're sort of like ghostly looking figures they're just really cool, of early people back in the day, and they still survive these paintings on the rock walls. So I went and saw that, and that was amazing, and slept for a little bit in the canyon.
Don't just skip over those petroglyphs. What was it like, bro? That I don't remember. I don't think we talked about this. What was that like?
Yeah, I posted a picture of them all on the gram, but they're it's crazy. It's a very strange experience. Like, I think this is a fairly popular canyon because of this cave art. But it was really cool because I was the only one there, because I was the only one stupid enough to be in Canyonlands in July during a heat wave. And so that was kind of cool. I had the whole thing to myself, and you walk in and you walk down into this big, like the Grand Canyon. It's not the space of the Grand Canyon, but it's that kind of canyon. And you kind of come around a corner, and there's a few different areas of where they painted it. And there's just like a giant smooth wall with these, some of them were small, little pictures of people and like hunting and like dogs and animals. And then there's one part called they call it the Great Gallery, which was really, 50 yards long wall, and of these really striking, cool figures, paintings of figures, red, with red mud. That were they're probably about 5 foot tall, each one, all across the canyon.
Wow.
And they're really high up too. they're really high up too because 4,000 years ago, you know, the ground was higher and then the river eroded it down. So it's a really crazy place, you know.
Wow.
You're
I've
surrounded
never
by this
heard
art.
Maybe I've seen pictures. Is it a very famous place?
It's pretty famous.
I might have
Yeah.
seen pictures of it. Okay.
It's Horseshoe Canyon, it's called.
That's unbelievable. And the fact that they're still
Yeah.
there, that's wild. Okay, so
Yeah.
how long would you say you spent in there? Just kind of like walking around?
That was like a day. That was like until nighttime. Then I came back and slept in I slept for most of the night in this little like you know the little like gazebos at trailheads that have like the map on the thing, and so I slept under that, and then I got really cold.
That is barely a gazebo, by the way. That is you're really embellishing. That is more just like a freaking post. It's just a standing post with a tiny covering on top.
Right, yeah. Right. No, that's true. And then I got really cold that night, and there was an outhouse that I went into. You know, those at trailheads where there's just a toilet and it's just a pit into the ground, you know? So I went into that and I slept on the floor of that, which was pretty gross, but it was warmer at least. And then I woke up to a really loud banging on the door, and I opened it, and there's a ranger there, and he was like, what the hell are you doing here, man? Like, we saw your bike locked up and no one came to get it. We thought there was someone like in the canyon. And I was like, and I was all groggy, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm just hiking. I don't know. Like, you know, he woke me up and
my wife
scared
died.
me.
My wife died. I don't know what's happening.
And they just scared me. And he was like, what the hell are you doing out here? He was like a little upset, you know, because I think they had been worried that there was someone missing. And I was like, I told him my plan, and he was like, do you know that it's like the hottest it's ever been on Earth or something like that? Like, and I was like, yeah, I know. And he like gave me some water, and he was like, just be careful, just be realistic. And I told him where I was going, and then
this is day 3, morning 3.
This is the morning, day 3.
Yeah.
And then I spent the rest of that day just hanging out in the shade there. And then when dusk came, I started riding my bike to the next trailhead, which was 11 miles further, and quickly realized that there was no road anymore. And because it looked like there was a road on the satellite pictures when I was drawing my route at home before I went on the trip. But when I got there, I realized that there really wasn't a road anymore, and it was just sort of faint tire tracks in the open desert. So I followed those for a little while, and then those disappeared, and then I was just walking through open desert with no road at all, just following this little line on my GPS device for 11 miles. And, you know, and in not great shoes, you know, sort of biking shoes, they would fill with sand every 100 yards, and you have to dump them out, and getting painful blisters on my feet, and then spend another night just lying on the ground trying to sleep, shivering. And then that morning woke up, got to the next trailhead, eventually hiked that canyon, and that's the canyon, the Slot Canyon.
Day 4, 4 granola bars and 2 bags of almonds. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was out of food at this point. But I was like, you can go pretty long without food. I came this far. I'm not gonna quit.
How was water? How was water looking?
Water was okay. I still had about a gallon left on my bike, and a gallon of water that the ranger had given me.
Thank God the ranger gave you that water, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I quickly used that water up, and that night before I went to bed, when I was walking, I was like, damn, I need some water. And there was this giant metal trough for cows. And because there were cows just sort of roaming the wilderness freely. It was interesting. I don't know. There wasn't really any fences or anything. I guess they just know not to go too far or something. But there was there were these troughs every once in a while full of water for cows from wells. And I came up to one, and it was really late at night, and there was, cow poop floating in it. It was dirty and gross. And when I got there, there was actually an antelope drinking out of it. And, but I had my water bottle, so I scooped up that water, filtered it, chugged it down. Didn't taste amazing, but
Cool.
I knew it was clean. That's how amazing this bottle is. It filters anything.
Link in the
drank a
bio.
little, like,
We're gonna put a link in the bio for that one.
link in the bio. So yeah, drinking this poop and pee filled water, but
Oh my!
So that was good.
Bro.
and then
Day 4.
yeah, crazy.
Okay, so you got to the canyon day 4.
Then I got to the canyon day 4. Then I hike this canyon. It's about, I don't know. There's a 11-mile walk to the canyon head, and then about 6 miles to the end of that hike, then 6 miles back, then 11 back to where my bike was. So did that hike in the day, did the slot canyon, which was incredible.
Which describe what a slot canyon is, because when you were telling me about this is something else that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So slot canyon is basically like a pretty narrow crack in the earth. And it's not like a canyon, like you're in a big canyon. It's like a canyonier's canyon that you have to like climb in and get down into. And there's walls on either side of you that go way up. Sorry, Isaac, what was that?
I was going to say like the Spider-Man walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you get to I get to the edge of this, and it just drops down about 15 feet and just basically smooth walls on either side. And I think like, how the hell am I going to get into this thing? And then how am I going to get out of it once I do? And then I thought to myself, well, I guess people do it all the time. And so you just kind of put one foot on one wall and one foot on the other wall and kind of just spider your way down it till you get to the bottom and hope you have the strength to get out of it.
And light, was there light coming in? How's the light looking?
At first it was fine. And then later on in the canyon, it drops down more levels until you're like, I don't know, at least 100 feet underground in this crack. So it got real dark real quick as the further down you went into this thing. And there were times when I would be climbing down it and I couldn't see the ground where I was going. And I just thought, well, I'll hit the ground at some point. And then you feel around and you touch the ground and you go, okay, now I'm on something solid again. And you keep walking. But
dude, it sounds like nothing, like obviously like a lot of this stuff can like fuck with your head, but nothing phased you too much. Like how did you like keep a mindset of like not letting anything
it's a good
phase
question.
you too much?
There were definitely some scary moments for sure. But I think one thing is my GPS device, I could call, it was connected to satellites, and I could call for help if I really needed it. So I knew I had this sort of lifeline. But also,
do you think it was because like
I don't know, it
earlier,
didn't seem.
Sorry to interrupt, but was it like you said earlier where you were like, you took some pressure off yourself, letting yourself know like, if I need to quit at any point, I can. Do you think that was like a big factor, or like just knowing that like you didn't have the mindset of like I gotta do this and I gotta do this, and even if I die, I gotta do this. You were more so of like, if I can, I can. If I can, let's just keep going. Do you think that was like a big factor?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you perform better when you take that pressure off of yourself, or that you perform, if you give yourself, it's about not lying to yourself, I guess. And this is something I got with acting too, is that, and why I ended up, I think ultimately leaving that, is because I realized that a lot of the interviews and stuff that I was thinking about, that I was watching of actors, they're good insight, but they're, in a way, they're sort of bullshit, because there's some survivor bias there. Whenever someone that's really successful, whether it's like, it's like, it's a good message to someone to say, don't quit, keep trying. But like when I see Gary Vee or someone talk about like, you can do anything, it makes me a little mad because there are some things that are out of your hands, and there will be times when you fail. So when you see someone successful being like, dude, you can just manifest it, bro. If you just manifest it, it'll happen. Well, they're not interviewing the guy who manifested it and it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Or so like, for whatever reason, like you could fail because you walk out your door one day and get hit by a bus and die. Like there's plenty of reasons why what you want might not actually happen. And so I sort of told myself like, that was what, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but what was so
keep going.
Yeah. That's, I think, what really attracted me to this biking thing and to physical feats. And what's so attractive to us about sports, I think, is because sports and competition is like, we've purposefully inserted something into society that we need. And what we need is just fair, merit-based competition. And no politics and no BS. Like, it doesn't matter how poor you are. If you can run a 9.700 meter, you'll be in the Olympics. Like, if you can prove it to somebody that you can do that, like maybe you're poor and you don't have a way to show somebody. But if somehow you can take a picture of some dude in the middle of India and you can prove that he just ran a fucking 9.600 meter, then he will be on the team. Like, that is the only criteria, is can you do it or not? And it's just, and like a lot of stuff in the creative field of like art, acting, music, you guys know this, is it's just not that way.
Yeah.
Like how many times you got on an audition and like you crushed it and you didn't get it. And you didn't get it because you have brown eyes and the character has blue eyes and they wanted to cast you, but they can't because you don't have the right eye color, or like stuff that's just so not out of your hands. And I think that's why sports is so important to us in society, is like, it's simple. And you can say they won because of this, and there's no other reason why they won, unless they're cheating or something. But ideally,
unless they're the Patriots. So
unless they're Bill Belichick. But so that's what really attracted me to biking, is I came out of this thing and I was like, fuck, I want to do acting. And I still think acting and performing is what I would most want to do. But the life of an actor, I think, is not for me anymore.
Fair. That's fair, Papa.
Yeah.
That's super
If
fair.
I could control, like I saw Oppenheimer and I was like, fuck, dude, if I could make something like that, what else? There's nothing else. What else do you need to do after you make a movie like that? It's like, that's all there is for life. Just do that. And if I could control doing that, if I could cast myself, or if I, but I don't have that power. So, but that's what really intrigued me and attracted me about this biking thing, is like, it's all on me. It's all on my physical ability and mental ability to do something. I'm not waiting for a yes or a no from anyone else. It's, can I ride this distance or not? And there's something about that that's just like so attractive, and so refreshing. And that's why I have all the respect in the world for people that can handle the hard parts of the business of music. I mean, I've heard that music is the only industry that's more cutthroat than acting, but so they're probably comparable. But of just people being like, you're not good enough, you're not hot enough, you're whatever. And the people, like, that's how you know they're like true artists. Of like, I look at Isaac, or I look at you guys, is that like, you're doing it and you're going on Instagram Live and you're putting it out there because you love doing it, and then if you love it enough, you get good enough, stuff will follow. But I anyway, there's a bit of a,
that was good though. No, man,
topic.
I think that's very important for people to hear, bro. That was That's what this thing is about too. Caffeine makes you go in many different ways, baby.
Yeah.
Getting back to the slot canyon now. Let's go back
Sure.
to because
Yeah.
that will lead to some more little good sort of bunny trails, so to speak. Some more little good slots. So you're going down. You're about 100 feet down. You know, there's points when because George Michael, that was a really good question of like, what was the mindset? What your mindset was just kind of. I mean, I can turn back if I want to. It's not, I need to do this or I'm going to die. You know, it's kind of, you gave yourself permission to do whatever came to you, essentially, is what it sounded like. So you get all the way down there. You get 100 feet down. Then what?
Well, the canyon, that part of the canyon in particular, this was the only time I saw any other hikers was on this hike. And I was sort of surprised. It was like an old guy and his two like granddaughters. And I was like, are you guys doing Blue John? And they were like, yeah, we just did it. And I was like, did you need ropes or anything? And they were like, nah, it's cool. So when I got there, I was like, I looked at it and I was like, I genuinely have no idea how I'm going to do this. And I'm afraid that this is the end of the road. And then I thought, oh, this dude and his two granddaughters just did, there must be a way to do it. So I spent about 20 minutes looking around and finally found my way down. So like that was a helpful part of seeing someone else. And it was sort of like, I think
Angelito. That's the angel
that
came on your road, bro.
Yeah. And another good mindset that I had was I just read a book about a guy that's doing a way crazier journey than I did. And he was able to do it. So there was an aspect of, oh, someone's done this before. And he doesn't seem any more special than me. He's just an average dude that went out. So that kind of helped me as well. But yeah, so actually I found the rock where Aaron Ralston was his name, is where the,
sorry, Abby's going crazy.
You're good. I found the rock. It's early on it's more early on in the slot canyon of where his arm was caught, where he had to cut his arm off. And I knew it was the rock because I studied it and I had pictures to reference it. And I was like, wow, and it's a powerful place. You know, there's a aura and an energy to that place that's like real and you can feel it, you know, especially knowing the story and you get there and you're getting, and I've sat on that and I sat there for maybe an hour and just meditated and maybe cried a little bit and just thought, wow, like he felt it, you know, this is where a man was, where he cut his own arm off to save his life after being stuck for 6 days. And I just did a tiny, tiny fraction of my own version of that, of like, wow, I made it. I did it. And so that was cool. But I ended up going deeper underground because I wanted to get to the end of the canyon. I didn't want to stop right there and turn back. And that's when it got really deep and a little sketchy and a little scary. But then it comes out to this cliff, to this massive open space at the end of it. This crack in the wall comes and opens up to this giant cliff and this giant drop off. At the end of that movie, he, with one arm, he rappels down, and that's where he rappelled down. I didn't have any ropes, so I just turned around and went back the way I came. But it's a really beautiful, surreal place. I don't know if you've seen pictures of like Antelope Canyon, it's the really famous one.
Yeah,
in
Antelope
Arizona.
Valley.
It's similar to that. But
when you climb back up, how difficult was that portion of it going back?
Yeah,
because that seems like it would have been intense, bro. You went.
It was more
it
difficult.
Was dark. Yeah, dude. I can imagine.
It was more difficult. There were some parts where you're just really squeezing your body through, and in the dark, and doing that while going up. It like took a while. There was, there were some parts where it took maybe 5 minutes to go a couple feet of just wriggling your way up back. But it was sort of like, I thought to myself, if I know I can get through this space because I got through it coming down.
Yeah.
So I thought, all right, well, there's a way to do it. And you just shimmy your way through until you're back out.
Bro.
Yeah.
All right, so you get back.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead,
No,
George. No, go ahead, go ahead.
Because what I'm gonna ask
Because
is like
because I was gonna start to segue into something different, which is exactly
Yeah.
where you're
Go
going.
ahead.
So
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
No. I didn't have a direction.
Okay.
I was gonna
George,
kind of let it
go.
happen.
I wanted to
Go,
go off
George.
on
Or let's just talk about who should go. Let's talk about who should go for like 30 more minutes.
I wanted to just go off on a tangent, kind of, because you mentioned earlier, like you guys mentioned early on the 127 hours and how people realize that they want to do things on their own and then they realize they need people in life.
Yeah.
And I kind of touched on it a little bit. It's like a long-winded question, so just bear with me. Last night when I was at the bar, I was reading the answers to the questions we sent you, right? And one thing that really stood out to me was the lone wolf concept, right? And the reason why it resonated with me is because for the longest I was like that. I always felt like my craft, I have to protect it from everyone because I want it to be like perfect or just like I want it a certain way. But then I realized like last couple years is that you can do things on your own, but it's not as cool or fun or like it's not meant to be like that. Like things are meant to be shared, but they're also meant to be created together to share together. So like my stages were before me struggling to break out of that, like just doing things on my own. Before I was so lost on it, I thought that was okay, but it's not okay, right? To just do things on your own. So I don't know if you can kind of just touch on that. Because the thing is, like, when I read your responses, dude, the way you articulate, like, thoughts, I thought it was beautiful, right? It's like I think a lot of the things that you were responding to, but I didn't know how to articulate them. But just to see, like, you being very honest about, like, your acting career or just the process of learning, of working with other people. So if you can kind of touch on that, I don't know where I'm getting at, but if you can kind of get my drift.
Yeah, that's, I think, is the single biggest hole in my plan and in these trips is the isolation. Because it's nice. There's times when it's nice. One thing Charlie Walker says, he says, what is it? Loneliness is the poorness of your own company, and solitude is the richness of your own company. And so, like, that's the difference between those words, I guess. And it's true because there are certainly moments when you're alone in the desert at sunset and it's just incredible. And I'm able to enjoy that on my own, to some extent. But like there were some times the trip that were just like extremely lonely and quite difficult. And I would, because of that, and I would sort of make a point of trying to go and talk to people, which I'm not great at. I'm weirdly shy when it comes to just approaching people. And that's something I know I'm really going to have to, that I think is going to be my biggest challenge for my upcoming trip is that I really need to make a real point of going up to people and talking to them and saying like, hey, what's up? This is what I'm doing. What's up with you? And just being as outgoing as I possibly can.
But more so,
so
like in general, of like, because when I read that response, I took it more so of like when you got out to LA and like working in like the realm you're in, of just being like, I can do this on my own. I can do this on my own. I can do this more. Because when I first met you, Reed, before we made our trek to Yosemite, I saw a lot of myself in you, of like, we're very to ourselves, but you can tell we're slowly trying to like break free from that and just enjoy moments with people instead of ourselves. So how was that process of like coming to the realization of just doing things on your own is not really the answer all the time?
I think once you've done something collaborative or made a friendship or made a strong connection with someone, going from that to doing it on your own, you realize how much more empty it is. You know, I don't think, and just relationships and friendships in general. Like, I don't think I think I would have left LA a lot sooner if I hadn't, you know, met Isaac and Sky and some of the other people I've met out there. And it's just the sense of camaraderie of knowing, of being able to voice concerns or anxieties or fears that you have, and then having people say, I'm the same way, dude. Like, especially amongst actors, they're always like, dude, I haven't. You'll always hear actors, I haven't worked in so long. I thought I was going to get this audition, I didn't get it. And then hearing from, you know, people that were way further ahead in their career and had done way really cool, impressive things, say, echo my same anxieties of someone who really never had done anything, or, you know, I didn't really do much when I was in LA, but like, so, but that was itself is like, oh, everyone's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like, do you find that, I want to hear your answer to that question too, because do you find that working with Hugh, DJing is, or working with other people gives you more, I don't know, kind of, you're sharing the load a little bit you're sharing the emotional load and you're sharing the anxieties and stuff like that, or what do you think?
That's a good question. When I first tried, so for the longest, I was just creating music on my own for the longest, right? And it was literally me probably being stubborn, and then another part of me was just being like shy to talk to people, and just being like overly artsy in my own mind, that you kind of get lost in your own thoughts, like creatively. So the first time I tried it, it was a struggle, and then I kind of was not turned off by it, but I kind of like put it to the side and just kept working by myself. And then I think I started to realize when it was, which is a blessing, like people coming to me to work instead of me reaching out. And then that, realizing that it's like, it's not really that hard working with other people, because in my mind I had a whole idea set up that if I can just get shit done on the computer by myself, like I don't need to talk to no one else. And just, to me, it was like, it felt like I would be wasting time trying to just delegate with people. So I think Hugh reaching out to me to like us have projects, and Brandon Rose with like KTLO, and then that opening doors to work with people, that showed me of like, dude, it's okay to just stop being so stoic or just like being so serious with the craft, and just like share it, dude. Like, even if it's not the best shit, at least like, I think seeing people's reactions too, of being like, oh, like we see George on Instagram and he's like staying busy with events and stuff. But then like when you show people behind the curtain, they're like, oh, dude, this is cool. Like it's not what it looks like it's to be of like such on a pedestal. So then when you see that reaction from people, and that you've helped them grow artistically, and they've helped you grow artistically, I think it was a beautiful thing to see, like you said, like take the load off, right? Because I've always been someone like, I just take everything on my own, and I don't let people in. But like I would say like the last year or two now, I'm really grown to just like network, meet people, like even if it's not exactly what you do, like you can learn something from this experience. And I started to realize more, like what I'm trying to get at is that I have more to offer than I thought. And I realized that by people letting me know that, right? They see the little bit of the talent, the skill, and they're like, dude, there's so much more you can offer. Just be vulnerable. So I would say, taking the load off your own shoulders was definitely a nice thing. It took time though. It definitely took time. Like, dude, I have so many beats on my computer that no one's heard, or that I haven't heard in a while, or like there's no one rapping or singing on it, or there's no collaboration. And not as of recently, like I have music from like 5 years ago, and I'm like, dude, I need to delete this. So then I have no choice but to create with other people, and like just create another folder of stuff that I can do collaborations with. And I think the one nice thing is, once I work with people, they'll hit me up a little bit later and be like, yo, you have any more? And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I know it's not the thrill of them just wanting to create with somebody. Like I strike the chord, and like they want to keep working, right? That's like
Yeah.
kind of like when you meet a chick and you think she's not gonna hit me back up because it was just a fun night, we were drunk or something, but then they hit you up and they're like, hey, I want to hang out again, or I want to any endeavor, right? So I don't know if that answers your question completely, but
No, yeah, it does. What do you think, Isaac? Like,
I mean, I think coming from an actor's point of view, this is just reminds me of another conversation I have. But specifically, being an actor, the art itself can't be created in a vacuum. You can't. You can't just act
Right.
I was
to
doing that for the
yourself.
longest too, man.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Yeah.
what that reminded me of, is what you were just saying, George, is that you have to have, and there's that saying of, what is a life lived if it's not worth sharing it with somebody else, type of thing, or whatever.
Right.
You get more
Yeah.
satisfaction sharing your life with somebody than with not doing that. And that doesn't necessarily, I mean, that specifically is for romantic partners and things like that, but not just with that. It's just with anything. I think with anybody that you come across, that you talk to, something that you were talking about, George, the networking aspect is something that I've gotten a little bit better at in the past couple of years as well, just because I used to think of it as always schmoozy and, oh, we're gonna go schmooze, blah blah blah.
Hated
I don't
it.
want to do that. Yeah, me too. But then I realize, oh, you're coming at it, me talking to me, you're coming at it from a place of it just being me in the vacuum, versus it being this thing of sharing something with somebody else, right? So you're sharing an experience, a conversation. It might be a laugh. You may never talk to them again. I just, I'm not that person to go and immediately say, hey, by the way, I'm an actor. I don't do that. So
Yeah.
I was speaking to Sky about this. We went to this meditation class the other day, and a lot of people were actors and writers or whatever. And the meditation itself was beautiful. It's a guided meditation class, and it was about creativity, and I loved it. It was great. But then afterward, some stuff started to happen where it was people were talking about their titles and who they were, and that happens in LA. A lot of it is geared around, I'm an actor. When you're meeting somebody else, you say that to them, and now they know how to conversate with you. Then they know, oh, you're an actor. I'm a writer. I know how to talk to you now because I know this is the lane. Versus for me, the way that it would say, let's say I'm meeting you, Reed, and you go, hey, my name's Reed. I go, hey, I'm Isaac. How you doing? Good, good. So how did you get connected in this whole thing? Oh, I got connected because I know so-and-so through this.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, that's awesome. So you know them through that. This is how I got connected in it. And then through that conversation organically, for me, I guess that's the most comfortable way of doing it. But I've had to shift my mind in certain aspects of it. Just kind of going back to sharing the emotional weight. That was something that you said that was really good there, Reed, in the question. Was I think it's hard often as an artist because you want to protect your art to share the emotional value of it with another person. Because when you allow somebody else to collaborate, you are allowing them into your artistic process. So you're allowing them into your little Winterfell, essentially. You're allowing them inside of your castle. You're opening the gates and allowing them into your castle and vice versa. And you're going into their castle. So there's this thing that happens when you have to be okay with the emotional value of it being, you're going to feel good, you're going to feel bad, they're going to feel good, they're going to feel bad. You gotta balance that out. And in doing that, it's a learned process. But as you get older, for myself at least, as I've gotten older, I've just seen the value of certain things and what's more important to me than that ego part of it, because that for me is connected to the ego, and we talked about this with Odell in one of our episodes. That all is connected to the ego. So the ego part about me feeling good or bad doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, art is going to be what it's going to be. It's subjective. Somebody's going to look at it, think one thing. Person B is going to look at it, think another thing. But if I, going back to the meritocracy, intrinsically kind of connecting it all, if I gave what I think I could have given and really fully feel that, it is what it is. And I'm proud to do that, right? I'm proud to share that. So the emotional weight distribution when you're collaborating with someone, I think is an incredibly important thing. And it becomes easier as you get older too, because you start to realize the finiteness of time. I don't even know if that's a word, right? So that time is finite. It's not something that is forever. So going again, connecting to something else that we were saying, I think this is good to start wrapping it up because we're like an hour 50. just got to try. You just got to try, man. You just really have to try. Even if it's just
And I realized
taking
too,
a
it's
step
like
in one direction.
does a story even exist if no one else hears it? It's like if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it ever fall? So I learned that over time. It's just like, dude, if I make music and no one hears it, what's the fucking point? You know, like
Absolutely.
obviously, like
Have
One of the,
pride
I
in it
love
too,
making
bro. Have
music in
pride
the
in it.
process, but it's meant to be shared. And that's the thing I struggled a long time with was like I was such a nerd with just making music to where I now like last year or two now I'm getting over the fence of, all right, you made it, bro. Now just send it to the world. What it is, what it is. You know, so that's kind of my journey on it.
100%. I think about Into the Wild. If you've seen that movie, or if you know that story, one of the last things he wrote in his journal before he died was "Happiness only real when shared."
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's a beautiful
and
movie.
it's true. You know, I think if you're in a romantic relationship and then you're not in one, and you realize, and you're like, there's something I could be doing that's a little bit better than this. You know, sharing something with someone,
man, with
if you're
anybody.
alone, or with any romantic, a friendship. You know, it's nice. So I'm really hoping on my next endeavors that I have people, and I'm also probably going to just be like, hey, I'm here today. Who wants to come join me? You know, I want anyone
Forrest
to come.
Gump it,
I want to
baby.
share stuff with people.
Forrest Gump it. Run with people across. I'm tired now. I think I'll go home. Okay, this is a good way to tie it up. You want to talk about? Tell us really quickly where you what's this next trip that you've been planting the seed on throughout this whole time?
Yeah, man, it's pretty. I'm pretty committed to it. I bought a camera a couple days ago. I'm gonna take some videography classes, and my plan is to make a film. And next May, early June, I'm gonna go to Alaska, to the very top of Alaska, and it's the start of the longest road in the world. It's called the Pan American Highway, and it goes from the very top of Alaska all the way to the bottom of South America. And I'm gonna bike, and I'm not gonna say I'm gonna do the whole thing because who knows, but I'm gonna start and I'm gonna bike south and see how far I get. So that's what I'm doing.
God bless you, bro. I love you. Let's
I'm gonna
ask our two questions to wrap this. Well, I'll ask mine, then you do yours, George. All right? Yes, we heard your dog that time. Now you can ask. I actually heard your dog that time. So, Reed, this is the steel tissue moment. The past couple episodes we've been doing this, which I always like. I've always had the image in my mind of a steel tissue because a tissue can wipe away blood and it can wipe away tears. So in your life, doesn't have to be super deep. It could be whatever. What are some moments that have made you most vulnerable, most resilient? Because I think those are those qualities kind of go hand in hand in life. And it could be this trip, because that sounds like what this trip is. But anything that you want to say about being vulnerable and then resilience.
This trip for sure is that. But also a lot of times that I think it hasn't worked out, or that I failed something. You know, I think about doing stand-up of just bombing, and then it just being like so mad at yourself and like wanting to quit and hating the world, and then going up again and being like getting back on the metaphorical bicycle and going back again on stage and doing well, and you go, oh, I can do this, you know? So it's just like, I think it's not just the failing, but it's because the failing can stop you and give you fear that you never let go of and you never try again. But it's just, you know, it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. It's just, it's failing, looking around, being like, oh, I'm still here. And also just realizing that, you know, one time when I was in a really hard place, I wrote in my journal like 1,000 times. I just wrote, no one is thinking about you. And it's just nice to remember that, like, if you did something amazing, you just won the Super Bowl, you won an Oscar, whatever it is, you did a crazy bike trip, you know, played a sick festival, whatever. People are like, wow, that was amazing. The show's done, and they're like, oh shit, I have to get my dry cleaning. You know, like right away, you like just knowing that you gave something to someone and it was good, but that just letting it be that, and it doesn't need to be the most important thing in the world. I think if going into it with that mindset of just like, I have something to offer that's real and valuable, but let it be the thing that I'm offering and not about me. You know, I think that's what I try. I mean, I don't always live by that rule, but I try to think about that. Like, oh yeah, people are mostly thinking about themselves, and that's okay because so am I, you know? And then taking time to do something for someone else is a good way to like step out of that. I don't know, giving a homeless guy $1 or whatever, some version of just doing something for someone else is like, I don't know. It's a good way of fighting back and say, I'm going to purposefully think about someone else. And in turn, that helps, whatever you're struggling with, I think.
You would have my vote for Miss America. That was great. That was great. No, it was beautiful, bro. Seriously. I agree with you, dude. That is the truth. GM, you want to take us home?
Sure thing. All right, Reed. So at the end of each episode, I ask this question. It's fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be super profound, or it can be. It's just whatever comes to your mind. So it goes like this. My name is blank and I blank. Or my name is blank and I am blank. You can say I'm tired, hungry, inspired, loved, whatever you want, Brian. Just take it away.
Sure. My name is Reed, and I am following my curiosity.
Nice.
That's what I'm doing.
It's the best way to live life, baby. Keeping things fresh, sleeping on the ground, ant bites, not having water, almost dying of heat stroke. Let's keep that going, baby. That was awesome. Reed boy, we love you, dude. Thank you for spending a few hours with us. You're the man.
Dude, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Love you guys.
Shout out Brad Weaver. Shout out Brad Weaver. Shout out what's the English guy's name?
Charlie Walker.
Charlie Walker, baby. Charlie Walker, Brad Weaver.
Go read his books.
That random ranger. We love you. Thank you for keeping Reed alive.
Water filters.
Because water filters. Shout out water filters. And shout out caffeine, baby. Love you, boys.
Oh yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. This was really great. It was fun.
This is the Café con Podcast.